to the historic Ocean House, a luxurious hotel that pays homage to New England's golden age of hospitality with timeless elegance and renewed civility. This treasured resort is the setting of our special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series, each program featuring nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation, hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to partner with the Ocean House to present this ongoing series, which brings you the best and the brightest of the literary world. Now, let's take you to the Ocean House.
Now, Deborah Goodrich Royce's Reef, a national bestseller, was named one of the best books of 2023 by Kirkus Reviews and an Indie Next Pick by the ABA. She began as an actress on All My Children and in multiple films before transitioning to the role of story editor at Miramax Films, developing Emma and early versions of Chicago and A Wrinkle in Time. With her husband Chuck, Deborah has restored the Avon Theater, the Ocean House Hotel, Deer Mountain Inn, of course the United Theater, Martin House Books, and numerous Main Street revitalization projects in Rhode Island and the Catskills. It goes without saying we are so grateful to Deborah for all that she does. Please give her a round of applause. Luanne Rice is the New York Times bestselling author of 39 novels translated into 30 languages. What an achievement. That's amazing. She received the 2014 Connecticut Governor's Arts Award for Excellence and Lifetime Achievement in the Literary Arts category. Several of Luanne's novels have been adapted for television. So now please join me in giving a very warm welcome to our united stage, Deborah Goodrich Royce and Luanne Rice. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, I am so lucky to be here in conversation with Deborah. She's one of my favorite writers already, but when I read Best Boy, I was able to get an early copy of The Bound Galleys, and it just completely killed me. It's a thriller. It's marketed as a thriller, and we all know that Deborah writes suspense, but it's very literary. It's very character-driven, so that I felt as if I got to know the characters so well. And as I told Carly and Deborah just a few minutes ago, that I was driving here listening to the audio, so it's my first time listening to the audio straight through, and there's so many emotional moments. Like I had to pull over at the end. I really did. It's a really beautiful book.
Well, I hate to say it, but that actually makes me happy. And the book is, of course, dedicated to Luanne, this very Luanne. And that has been one of the most extraordinary facets of this author journey is the authors I've met along the way, and first and foremost, you. And I didn't anticipate that. I had no idea what a connected group of people it would be.
And I'm a very solitary person and writer, but you have really brought me into a more social circle of writing. We have together founded a writer's retreat in a beautiful place that everybody should go, up in Tannersville, New York, but also the Ocean House Author Series. And I admire, how do you find the time to do all of that, to actually administer these things, but also write an incredibly wrenching book?
I have not written 39 books, Luanne. I've written 4. So there you have it. No, but I think it's true. There's a list of things I've done, but I would say for anybody younger in the room, a lot of my life has been sequential rather than simultaneous. I'm not really doing everything all at once. And both the Ocean House Author Series and the Deer Mountain Writers Retreat and the Catskills, they are companion aspects of the writing life. They don't take as much of my time as all the other things I used to do.
Yeah, I know, and I think that compartmentalizing is something even more and more that we have to do because there are more distractions in life than, at least when I was young, it was just my desk, a phone that, attached to the wall. There was no internet. Research was at the library. And I miss that in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of advantages to what we have now.
Speaking of research at the library, I was in Westerly Library last week. It's such a fabulous library. And sneak peek, I was in the paranormal section. I'm writing a Westerly ghost story.
Ooh, wonderful.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. You know, your sense of place is so, it's just, I feel very rooted in whatever location you've set your novels in. And we've had Watch Hill, we've had Palm Beach, we've had LA. And in Best Boy, you go back to your childhood roots. How was that to write about?
Well, it's the second time I've used Michigan. In Finding Mrs. Ford, it's Michigan, Watch Hill, and a little bit of New York as a tinier, but really it's primarily Michigan and Watch Hill. And Best Boy is Michigan, Los Angeles, and Greenwich. For me, Michigan stands as a symbol of where I'm from. I'm from a very working class suburb of Detroit. If I don't care what news you watch, if you're ever seeing the automobile working man on the street being interviewed before an election, that's my town, Warren. It's all the houses look alike. They're not they're not similar, they're the same. It's a post-war development. General Motors moved outside of Detroit and built this tech center, and this suburb grew out of the farm fields. So it's not like a beautiful New England village like Westerly. It's, to me, I feel like I'm telegraphing something by starting in those two novels, a character in that place, because it's such a signal that she's got to get the hell out of there.
I grew up in New Britain, so I get it. But it's very moving, you know. And there is a moment when she leaves her hometown. That is the first time that the waterworks came for me. But she moves. You know, there's a lot, as you said, L.A. That part is something you know very well as from your years in acting, right? And
Yep.
this, I felt like that was another thing I found fascinating, is the way you wrote about the nuts and bolts of a set, you know, and of a film, because it's very integral to the thriller aspect of Best Boy.
That's an interesting point about nuts and bolts. So 1,000 years ago when I was an actress, I auditioned for a movie, and I could not read the script. Everything was like Roger, over and out. Talk about nuts and bolts. Mm-hmm. That movie, irrespective of my humble opinion, did very well. It was called Top Gun. But I thought, I can't read this. It was all lingo, and not my type of lingo. But along those lines, I think we do have to write worlds we know. Mm-hmm. So Top Gun is clearly not my world. I couldn't write that. But I can write what I know. And the acting world, I don't know if I could write it today in 2026. So I had it in the early 2000s. I mean, there's a limit beyond which my knowledge, I think, becomes horribly obsolete.
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes through so convincingly and wonderfully. And like even, I mean, I try not to give too much away, but there's a moment where the main character, Vivica, is up for a part, and it's a shoo-in. She's going to get this, it's going to make her career. She's going to be the next who was the biggest actress at that time. Julia Roberts, maybe?
Oh, then, no, her moment was Scarlett Johansson.
Okay, so Scarlett Johansson. So she was going to, and then something happens. And it really hit me, because I feel like that is true of all the arts. You know, that you're on the launch pad to be the next big thing. And then something comes along. A blizzard, for example, or...
Well, I'll tell you a story. I started on All My Children. I was written out of it. My character, Susan Lucci's little sister, was sent to prison because she was just diabolically insane, and off she went. And then I was in LA. I'd been flown out there by Paramount Pictures to screen test for a project with Christopher Lloyd, and I had this career that was going along. I was doing feature films, I was doing nighttime TV. And we reached a moment where I screen tested for About Last Night. They screen tested Mariel Hemingway, Diane Lane, Phoebe Cates, Demi Moore, and me. And my agent said, no more television, no more small parts in films. We're going to really curate and manage your career going forward. And I got pregnant. So that, to your point, life turns on these tiny pivots. And a lot of, not that story, that doesn't happen in this book, but, and I got pregnant with my first daughter, Alexandra, and I thought, oh, I'll just go back to work in 10 seconds. After I had the baby, there was a writer's strike, so it extended it 2 years, and it was never the same. And I was never the same, but I think we all have those things in our lives. Whatever we're doing, we think we're barreling along toward this glorious success, and boom, we're derailed in another direction.
Well, our good luck that you got pregnant, because now you're a writer. You might not have written novels if you'd continued acting. Although I do think that you use some of the same talents, don't you, to act, because you have to inhabit a story, inhabit a character.
I think it's very similar. The actor's method is you go deep within yourself and you find in your own emotional toolbox whatever it is you would use to play the character. It's obviously not a character you've written, but we've all felt everything. I mean, I don't, unless you're a sociopath, and that's a whole different story. But we felt everything there is to feel. We may not have carried it to the point of violence or murder or whatever. And I think all writers use that. I mean, Best Boy has kind of a slightly taboo thing in the literary world now. It has a black storyline. There's a black family. The girl, Ingrid, grows up in suburban Detroit, and the family next door is a black family. Her best friend is in that family, and they are really her chosen family. And it's something, there are conversations very active in the literary world now. Whose story do you get to tell? I don't write any of them as point of view characters, but I feel like coming from the acting world, you really are supposed to be able to play every character. I should be able to play Hamlet.
Yes.
Some version, some interpretation. That's the justification for something like Bridgerton, for West Side Story, which is Romeo and Juliet. I mean, we're here on a stage. You want to see things revisited, reinterpreted, somebody else's version of it. So I think the literary world needs to kind of remember that.
Well, it's funny because it's actually gone 180, because when I was young and writing, there was a lot of criticism of writers who were writing only from their point of view and only from their socioeconomic reality, and it would be a big thing in Kirkus Review, for example, or PW. It would be a criticism, and as time's gone on, it's the opposite. And it's cultural approbation. It's so many other things, and now. I'm not sure if if it happened for you with Best Boy, but it's happened with me. If I've written about Indigenous people, for example, they'll get a sensitivity reader to read it to make sure that I haven't crossed a line. It's a tricky thing.
I did have black authors read it, and I have gotten no pushback, so that's been good.
Yeah, well, it's beautifully done. The book is, the characters are all so sympathetically rendered, with the obvious exception of the bad guy. There's a very bad guy in this book, and he's sneakily bad, which makes him even worse.
So, but let's talk about that a little bit. The idea of who did it and who's the bad guy, and how far do you go to have a twist? And do you always have to have a twist? And when we were on the Deer Mountain Writers Retreat, I had a long walk with Wendy Walker, another thriller writer, and we had a great debate over at what point does a twist become ridiculous? And you really can only have a twist, I think, if it's justified. The debate of a twist versus a reveal, and I think we have a little bit of both in this novel, but
it doesn't feel as if it doesn't feel as if you planned anything. It just feels as if the characters are in the story, and the twists that occur, and I never even heard about the difference between a twist and a reveal. But I think that obviously a good suspense novel keeps you guessing. But I feel like in this book, and many of your books, it comes from the characters. It comes from their complexities.
I thank you. I think that's a high compliment.
I mean it that way, yeah.
Yeah, so this story, it's about a girl from this suburb of Detroit named Ingrid, who in her senior year of high school, she goes to a Halloween party, she drinks too much, and wakes up in the high school parking lot having been assaulted. This happens in the prologue, at the beginning. And she has to have plastic surgery, her face has been damaged, her vocal cords have been damaged, and not just for those reasons, but also because of really the societal pressures. After this happens, she leaves town. She goes and reinvents herself in Hollywood, and that is really her big pivot. And then about a decade into her life in Hollywood, when she's just gotten married and has a little baby boy, something else happens, and she leaves that life and comes to the East Coast, to Greenwich. So she's a bit of a leaver.
Yeah, I'm right with her. I got why she did that. It's also, psychologically, it's very interesting. This is not the first book of yours where you've written about generational trauma and PTSD. And one of the things that you've done certainly in Best Boy and in other of your novels, is dissociation and blackouts, not from drinking, not from substances, but from terror, from experience that is too much to bear, too much to hold. What kind of research do you do on that? Because you write it so convincingly.
Well, Ingrid, who goes on to become Vivica, she adopts the stage name of Vivica Anders, which, do you remember Vivica Lindfors? I love that name. Mm-hmm. She has migraines, and I really have had a lifetime of severe migraines, ocular migraines, the whole 9 yards. And there are many aspects of migraines where you kind of go into another world. And what's interesting for me, now that I'm in this later stage of life, I do not get them as much as I used to. So that's a huge relief. There's benefits to aging. Yeah, I would say my first 4 books really hinge on underlying trauma, things that people are hiding, things that people are running away from. I'm wondering if I've expiated a little of it, because I'm writing 2 cozies back to back. This is my Westerly ghost story, and I have a Westerly murder mystery. But they're much lighter. So I don't know. Although, I told you the story of the white jacket. I had the idea of another book, which is obviously another trauma book. So I could be wrong.
Well, it's very interesting, and I think that it makes the characters extremely sympathetic, because I'm sure more people relate to it than you might even think. And what you said about secrets, there's one of the main characters who comes in toward the end of the book, who I was going to say gently chastises Vivica, but she really is she's not really that gentle. She's very forceful and says, you need to stop keeping secrets. You need to let people know who you are. And I don't think that's giving too much away.
No, Ingrid/Vivica is very good at forming female friendships. Mm-hmm. She might not keep them all because she has when she leaves town, when she leaves Michigan, she has an estrangement with her best friend. And her her childhood friend Amelia and her agent / best friend Rachel, they both are truth tellers. They serve that purpose for her. And I think we all need that friend who tells us, knock it off, right? Knock it off. And Rachel grew. She was a character I didn't plan to write, to the degree that she kind of just took over the page.
She's fabulous. I absolutely love Rachel. And listening to the audio, it was a different, both she and Em, the reader reads them in a very different way than she reads Vivica. Well, Vivica has her voice issue from what she went through when she was young, but they're fantastic friends and fantastic characters. Yeah, Rachel is she's
hilarious.
She's
a lot of the comedy in the book.
I mean, she's her agent, which in itself is funny, right? Having an agent is funny. It just is.
Yeah, and she talks like a Hollywood agent.
She does.
No nonsense.
No. And when she has a moment of vulnerability, you're really rooting for her, because you want her to be that tough lady.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then we have Greenwich. That's the other setting.
We have Greenwich, yes. My husband, who's probably here somewhere, way in the back, Chuck, wave. Did he leave? He's gone. Okay, so Chuck tells me, I'm going to speak freely. Every place I write, so I've written Watch Hill, I've written Hollywood, I've written Palm Beach, now I've got 2 more Westerly books, Greenwich. He always says, we're going to get kicked out of that town. I don't think I portray any place badly. Like in Finding Mrs. Ford, there's nothing bad about Watch Hill in it. So here's where I'm careful in Greenwich. Vivica, whose son is 10 years old then, Theo, and can you believe I named him Theo before Theo of Golden? It's sort of the name of the year now, which is a beautiful book. So Theo goes to the boys' school in Greenwich, Connecticut. I don't name it. The family belongs to a club in Greenwich. I don't name it. I'll name restaurants, because I always have a little thrill when there's a restaurant on Greenwich Avenue called Mediterraneo, or in Finding Mrs. Ford, I have Susan walking by the St. Clair Annex back when they served breakfast. We need a campaign for breakfast. But I think they root us. They're visually clear, whether you've seen these places or not. I describe them to a certain degree, but it also roots you in time. Like so Finding Mrs. Ford is set in 2014, and when she walks by the St. Clair Annex and gets her newspapers at the little kiosk next to the merry-go-round, I didn't know those things were going away. Yeah. So now they're kind of retro if you read them.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's like a way to revisit times that we all remember.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
Ocean House, located on the scenic Atlantic Ocean in historic Watch Hill, is one of only 14 triple 5-star resorts in the world, with superb guest accommodations, a world-class spa, dining, and events. This year, Ocean House is once again hosting one of their most popular events, the Ocean House Author Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Enjoy her discussion with Book of the Month Club and New York Times bestselling author Catherine Center on Wednesday, May 27th at 6 p.m. They will be discussing her latest rom-com novel, The Shippers. Attendance includes a signed copy of the featured book, insightful conversation, as well as complimentary wine and delicious light bites. Held at the breathtaking Ocean House, this exciting event begins at 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 27th. For information and tickets, go to oceanhouseevents.com. That's oceanhouseevents.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
I did love the luncheon with the ladies, with Vivica and her friends, and she was a little late, but she's always early, but she didn't get the memo that they had changed the time, and so they're all waiting for her. And it reminded me a little bit of the way you described the fashion and the jewelry and the hair. It was so knowledgeable and so delicious to read. It reminded me of, remember Scruples? Anybody remember Scruples?
Scruples.
By Judith Krantz.
Yes.
And she was, and Danielle Steele is great at that too. And I don't mean that this is in any way a romance, but it was just like a world that a lot of us don't live, and the brands and the particular labels. It was fun.
Well, thank
to
you.
read.
So let's go back to this contrast with suburban Detroit, where I'm from, the more working class suburbs, so I start these characters there in those two novels, Finding Mrs. Ford and Now Best Boy, but they end up in places like Watch Hill or Greenwich, Connecticut, and they're completely different worlds. And so this luncheon, it's a bunch of school moms getting together to work on the auction, the fundraiser for the school, and they're talking about things like who can get a plane, hours on a plane, who can get a donation of a ski resort, and then there's a great debate of whether or not it's acceptable to get a puppy. Do you bring a puppy into a school auction? And one mother says, well, the last time we got a puppy, the puppy died, and it's like, but it's, it takes you into very contrasting worlds.
Yeah, it was really fun to read, that part of it. The whole thing was, but I really did love those scenes. Those Greenwich scenes were
Thank you.
a lot of fun. And so you mentioned Theo of Golden. What books influenced you as a new writer? Not so much right now, but before you. Was there anything that you either loved the style of, loved the storytelling style, the voice?
So many books. I read widely. I read a lot of fiction, and there is a book I return to every few years, and it's two novellas together, Nancy Mitford's Pursuit of Love and Love in a Cold Climate. And I've thought long and hard about why I love these books so much. They're fictionalized versions of the Mitford family in this between the war period in England, between World War I and World War II. And if you know about the Mitfords, they're really this wildly eccentric family of all these kids who one becomes a famous communist, one becomes a famous fascist, one gets killed in the war, one blows her brains out when England goes to war with Hitler. They're just wacky and eccentric, and I've thought long and hard about why. So I'm an only child, and sort of, but that's another story. And why do I write secrets? Because I found out when I was 12 I had a brother I didn't know about. That's another story. But so the thing with this whole Mitford clan, fictionalized in Pursuit of Love and Love in a Cold Climate, she creates this world that appeals to me because everyone is so deeply flawed and so wildly funny, because I always think, even in drama, you have to be funny. And there's something that knits them together, and through the wonderful lens of fiction, it all kind of turns out okay in the end. So those books, those are my comfort books. But I read so broadly. I've always loved your books. I think in terms of like literary thrillers, I would put in Tana French and Donna Tartt, Chris Bohjalian, you. Because I think with a thriller, I don't write the kind of thrillers where it's, it's not geopolitical and it's not so high speed that you're like shot out of a cannon until you get to the end. Mm-hmm. I like the character diversions. I would call them Hitchcockian.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are really good at the diversions. It's true. Like you'll be reading and kind of reading for what's going to happen next, and then there'll be like a little bit of an internal moment that is really what makes it literary, I think, because you get to know the characters as opposed to a surface story that is, point to point to point. And I do love that. And you're going to have Chris Bohjalian at the Ocean House, aren't you?
We are. We have quite a season. We kick off, we kick off with Annabelle Monaghan. Then we have you with your launch until midnight, which is set in Watch Hill again.
Thank you.
You better get your tickets now, like right now, but don't start texting while we're here. But as soon as we break, get your tickets. We have Chris Bohjalian. We have Jenna Bush Hager. So she reached out to me, and I get this email, and it's like, hey, Deborah, it's Jenna Bush Hager. And I'm like, yeah, right. I'm sure. But her cousin lives in Greenwich. So I texted her cousin. I said, is this really your cousin? She said, yes, Deborah, it is.
Wow.
So she has two authors. You just interviewed Deb Curtis,
who's fantastic.
They're two Rhode Island authors. Shannon Garvey, who's related to the Richens family. Are you all here? Anybody here from the Richens family? Shannon Garvey and Deb Curtis, both Rhode Island authors, and Jenna will come with them.
That'll be so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting how it all goes together. And you read Chris, and he's inspired you, and here you're going to be interviewing him soon. Did you ever want to write anything other than novels? Like, have you written, well, I know you've written a screenplay, but poems or short stories, essays, nonfiction?
I've written short stories. No, poems, and I don't read a lot of poetry. I always like it when I read it. I don't pick up poetry that much, and so I would be very ill-equipped. I wrote school papers and essays and all that stuff. Short stories, for sure. Mm-hmm. In the years that I was writing and not publishing, I was writing short format.
Yeah, I was wondering too, like anything nonfiction, because I feel as if when we talk, a lot of times we'll talk about a lot of deep topical or psychological things, and I always want to know like more of, what you think about it. Then I think, well, the way to tell the truest story is fiction.
I think so. I really feel strongly that you can zoom into the point of the truth you want to tell through fiction without all of the facts. An example would be my prior novel, Reef Road, which is an examination of, in a very loose way, my mother's best friend was murdered when my mother was 12, and I decided not to write that as nonfiction. But when I was kind of recreating the family in which this happened, the murdered girl was 12, unsolved crime, and the primary suspect was her 19-year-old brother. There was also another brother who was in his mid-20s and married and lived away from the house. So if I had been writing that as nonfiction, I would have had to go into some detail on this extra brother. But in fiction, it was just messy to have that spare person, and it really didn't get to the point of what I was looking at.
Yeah, that's a real challenge in writing fiction, because it's true. You have to get it all in there, get the important things, but frequently that means cutting a lot of stuff out. How do you feel about editing compared to writing? I mean, the first draft, and then having to go through the editorial process.
I revise.
You
Do? I
Yeah.
do. I revise a lot.
You like it? You enjoy that?
It can be challenging. So I'll give you an example of an edit that I got from my editor on this book. So they're really, the main timelines are 1998 and 2018, and then there are a couple of periods in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And the editor said, pick 2018 for now. Make that now. Mm-hmm. And then everything else is sort of branching off to and referring to now. I thought it was a very crystal clear edit, an extraordinarily helpful edit. It didn't make any chapters shorter, but there was some restructuring. And when you restructure, it changes your transitions, how everything glues together. You have to be so careful.
That's my worst. Timelines are the killer for me. And you handle it really well because you have 3 distinct time periods. And they don't get in the way. Like I find sometimes it's jarring when you're reading a novel and you're in 2018, and then suddenly you go back to 2008. It can be jarring.
Well, I write it as you read it. So, and I think it helps me. I was here with Marie Benedict a couple of weeks ago, and she writes, well, her newest book is set in ancient Egypt, and it's set in 1920s England. So there's no connection between the 2 time periods. But for me, and I always say maybe it was because I was on a soap opera and they love cliffhangers, I like knowing how it's going to flow together, and those transitions. I mean, I always use examples like, what if I was about to strangle you with this towel that I have here, and then I throw it away. So here we are on April the 12th, 2026, and this is the murder weapon, and it disappears. But now I'm going forward and writing something in 2027, and then I'm coming back to April the 15th. I do calendar notes. I print out calendar pages, so I will make a note of when this towel disappears so that I don't mess myself up and show the towel on, April 15th, tax day.
Interesting that you do it that way. I mean, there is actually I won't mention what it is that appears at the end of the novel that was glaringly missing at an important moment, and heartbreakingly missing. And then it emerged, and it was very satisfying. Did you know that was going to happen?
No, I did not know, but then at some point I did. Yeah.
As you're writing, but it wasn't like you had it in mind. Like,
not at the very beginning.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way that it's magic, right? Writing is magic.
It's a crazy journey. It is sort of allowing yourself to join a current or a stream and getting on the raft and going, and you have to paddle like hell.
That's true, especially upstream. And then there are those rapids, It's really true. So how lucky are we to be here on a beautiful, I think one of the most beautiful spring days that we've had so far. Just sunny and beautiful sea breeze. And instead of during the blizzard, can we talk a little bit about that?
And we're here with you. I'm so happy to be here with you. We were going to be here with Robin Call, and I love Robin, absolutely love Robin. So hello, Robin, if you're listening to this on the radio. But I'm also super happy to be with you, Luanne.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. I'm honored. We were together the night before the blizzard. We were at the Black and White Ball at the Ocean House, celebrating the United Theater, and looking very nervously at the weather report. And at first we're like, it's in New England. It's going to snow, big deal. And then we're looking a little harder. And Gretchen, our wonderful bookseller, her son is apparently a very good meteorologist. And she was like, don't worry, we're going to go. We're going to do it. And I think we really hoped we would.
I'm always the last to cancel. Being a Michigander, I feel like I never had a snow day in my life. And my joke, not joke, is if we ever truly want to win a war with China or Russia or anyone, we probably should learn to drive in the snow, because those people know how.
Yes.
So, it would be good for us. But no, this was I saw it. I was here. It was a blizzard. I concede.
It was. I know.
Surrender.
I know, but you and I were the last to surrender. I think we really didn't want to, but so happy that everybody came back. That whoever was here. That.
Thank you all. Yes.
Thank you so much.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
Ocean House, located on the scenic Atlantic Ocean and historic Watch Hill, is one of only 14 triple 5-star resorts in the world, with superb guest accommodations, a world-class spa, dining, and events. This year, Ocean House is once again hosting one of their most popular events, the Ocean House Author Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Enjoy her discussion with Book of the Month Club and New York Times bestselling author Catherine Center on Wednesday, May 27th at 6 p.m. They will be discussing her latest rom-com novel, The Shippers. Attendance includes a signed copy of the featured book, insightful conversation, as well as complimentary wine and delicious light bites. Held at the breathtaking Ocean House, this exciting event begins at 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 27th. For information and tickets, go to oceanhouseevents.com. That's oceanhouseevents.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
Are we going to do questions from audience? Oh, hello, you. There, I couldn't see you until now. How are you? We have to do one of those pictures where everybody holds their books up. There's my husband. He's back. Don't tell him anything I said about him while he was gone.
The secrets of Greenwich.
Hi. I just have a question about craft, and it's I just want to know, how often do you write? When do you write? Where do you write? Do you write when you don't feel like writing? And keep on going with that. And
I think we should both answer this. I'll start. I try to write every day when I'm not on book tour. I generally write in the morning, so I get up and I do some little kind of meditation. I kind of switch up what I'm doing, but I always do something a little spiritual to start my day. I'm on the slow-mo track to read the Bible. I'm like 4 years into the 10-year plan. Don't make fun of me. There's an app. Hi, you guys, Trudy and Terry. I do this app called Soul Time. It's teeny extracts. I'm actually not exaggerating.
Like Soul Train?
Well, that's my youth. It's Soul Time. So I do something like that. I might work out. I have a little breakfast. And then I always write in the same place. So I have a room here. I have a room in Greenwich. And it's the place I sit. And I think we're all a little bit Pavlovian. If we sit in a spot where we do something, we're kind of triggered to do it. And the last part I'll say is, do I write when I don't feel like writing? If I really can't get words on the page, I'll do something else. I might reread what I've written. I might edit. Or an example I'll give, because I've been traveling so much and this Westerly ghost story I'm writing is kind of broken up. I, right now, when I can sneak in, I'm reading all these books about ghosts, and I'm having so much fun. So what about you?
I was always very talismanic. I needed to be at my desk by 8 o'clock, no later. Even to this day, I don't speak out loud before I write. It's easier because my cats don't really mind if I don't speak to them. So I don't have the same disciplines that you do, but I get up, I check the bird situation at the feeders, hit the coffee. If the bird feeders need filling, I'll do that. Then I go to feed the cats first. Actually, they wake me up at 4 o'clock.
I'm wondering how you could ignore feeding the cats. You don't, yeah.
Don't tell them. No, but this is the first period. So I've, been at it for a long time and dropped out of college to write. I have gone through a lot of emotional big things in my life, but this past year was a rough one. My sister was very sick, and thank God she's totally fine. And a writer friend died, and it was the first time in my life I was unable to do my practice of, and I just had to kind of surrender to it. And getting back to it is like learning how to walk again or ride a bike again. We've talked about this, and you've been so helpful to me, and really helped me to get through that. So, yeah, it's it's not automatic.
So one thing I want to say about that, my mom used to say, like, if I was doing something, she'd say, don't be nervous. I'm like, oh my God, now I'm going to be nervous about being nervous. So I think with these things we're talking about, sometimes you just have to be okay with being nervous or anxious or unsettled or unsure. And if you really can't go straight at it, go a little bit around it, do something. There's something you can do.
So the letter from Mark, how close is that to the letter that sparked this book?
Pretty darn close. So 3 years ago, I got an email. Mine was an email from a guy who said, hey, remember me? I was your best boy in Survival Game, which sounds like a sexy sentence, but it's not, because a best boy is someone in the electrical department on a film, and Survival Game was a movie I did with Mike Norris, who is the son of Chuck Norris, who died a week or two ago. And so, to you, Chuck. And I didn't remember this guy. And he went on to say, do you remember that Thanksgiving dinner we had together? You were the only actress on the set that nobody visited. So I thought, well, gosh. I don't remember that about me. That's a funny little factoid you've retained. And he capped it by saying, do you remember when we saw each other at the Cannes Film Festival? You were holding a baby, and I wondered for a moment if the child was mine. He did finish by saying, of course, that wouldn't have been possible. But it was such a weird email. It was kind of a little unsettling and slightly antagonistic and a little bit insulting, but that's what really got me thinking about memory and this idea that we don't all remember the same thing, and we're kind of having different experiences as we go along, and it became the genesis of the book. So in the book, she gets a letter. I got an email, but it's pretty darn close.
I'd love to know, what's the most influential book you've ever read? What aspect of that book impacted you internally that you took an outward expression and it changed your life?
So the question is, what is the most influential book you've ever read, something that you've internalized so much it's had an effect really on how you've lived your life? Wow. You want to go first?
That was so deep. I was just counting on you to field that one. Well, I can tell you.
You have it?
And it's Franny and Zoe. It's Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger. And it's two short stories that were published in The New Yorker that were then published by Little Brown as a novel. But to me, it is the most beautiful way of writing about siblings and family. I have two sisters, and the secret languages you speak and the memories you carry and the laughter and all the good and the bad. So that's mine.
I'm going to go back to Pursuit of Love and Love in a Cold Climate. There's a fragment of it at the beginning that talks about an old photograph, and the moment that the camera goes off and a family group is caught in this amber of the photograph, and they're children, and it's chaotic, and the mother's trying to hold on to the child who's got chocolate on her face, and we know it's bittersweet because we know it's not going to remain that way. But I guess that, for me, is the essence of what I'm writing in this idea of memory and holding on to something. What are we trying to hold on to in a book? So I'm going to say that.
Very curious about two things. Screenwriting, which you started your career doing after acting, I guess. And then, this might sound like a silly question, but when you're writing a book, can you write chapter 10 before you've written chapter 3? Or do you have to write it sequentially, and you might not know what is going to happen at the very end?
So two things. I don't like writing screenplays. I don't think I'm good at it. It's a different mechanical process. You're saying things like, fade to black or smash cut, or you are kind of describing all that stuff. It's obviously dialogue, very little description, visuals. I don't think it's my strength. And in terms of writing out of order, I tend not to. If I have to, the book I'm working on now, I went ahead because I wanted to put something down in the next chapter before I'd finished a chapter, but I kind of jotted just the beginning and then went back. I tend not to write out of order. What about you?
I never write out of order. I always write straight from page one. And for me, the first sentence that I write has to stay the first sentence when I'm finished.
Do you ever change a first sentence?
No.
No. I love that. First sentences are really important.
What brought you to Westerly originally, and what do you love about our town?
What brought me to Westerly? Where'd he go? And what do I love about it? I love so much about... So, going back to the pivots of life, in the year 2000, my life blew up. My first husband left me, left our children, left our family, and it was a very dark time. And I met this fellow at the back of the room, and he very kindly, it may have been a little strategic, but it was also very compassionate, spent 2 years talking to me about this husband who had left me, and I was now we were divorcing, compassionately about him, like what were his dreams? What do you think went wrong in his life? What was his family like? And over this process of years, I was able to forgive him and build what became a cordial relationship with the father of my children, because I was very wounded and very betrayed and shattered. So I credit Chuck. Chuck gets so much credit for so many things. And he, at some point, invited me up here. I'd never heard of Watch Hill. I'd heard of Newport. He said, it's near Fisher's Island. I said, you mean Miami? So it was November. Chuck was on the board of Mystic Aquarium. We went to the gala for Mystic Aquarium, and there was a tango night at the Olympia Tea Room. Does anybody remember that one and done tango night? Was that great? So I thought, wow, this is a really cool town. They have tango nights. But the other thing that struck me is, remember what the cabanas look like on the beach? It looked to me like abandoned railroad cars kind of running along there. I thought, wow. Kind of fancy houses, and that looks a little weird. Anyway, that was the first time I came here. And what do I love about it? I've written 2 books here, one published, one that will be published, and now I'm writing a third here. To me, it's kind of everything I wish I'd grown up with in that monotonous suburbia and strip mall that came along. And there was nothing wrong with where I grew up, and there are lovely people, and I go back, with every book to the library there. But this is a real town. I mean, you can walk for coffee, you can walk into a theater, you can go to the library, you can go to the bookstore. It's the park, a world-class park. It's so beautiful. Watch Hill is this crazy extension of it, which is also magnificent. And then you think about Avondale. Has anybody been back to the Cooked Goose? Do you like the blue color? Okay, good. Go back. So many things. What about you? You're here all the time.
Yeah, I just, grew up, my mother's side of the family is from Rhode Island, and we had relatives here in Westerly, and came all the time to see them. I love the library, just one of my favorite libraries in the world. The park is incredible, and just it's a really solid, real town. I I can't explain it. Like there's other coastal towns in southeastern New England. This is like, you can feel that there was industry and history and the, then of course the seaside, the beaches. And even though my family spent summers, my other grandparents had a cottage in Old Lyme in Connecticut, and we would hop in our car and come down to Westerly and Misquamicut as often as we could, And my niece lives a couple blocks away right now. We're very centered here.
My mom is buried here. So when as she was getting older, I asked her if she wanted to be buried in Michigan with my dad and brother. And she said, I want to be with you. So I go through Riverbend Cemetery as I go in and out of town, which is so wonderful. It's so beautiful.
There's a Titanic survivor there.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'll show you.
Thank you. Maybe this should be the last one. Oh, no, we have two more.
I just wondered if there was a person or moment that made you a reader, and then you mentioned earlier about the distractions that can make it difficult to sit down to write. In today's day and age with so many distractions, are there ways that you think about getting your kids or your kids' kids to read?
So as an only child, I grew up, in the age of boredom. We were just bored out of our minds. And I would sit in the basement. We had this 1940s set of encyclopedia, which predated me. And I would just read the encyclopedia. I think boredom was such a wonderful thing that's so underappreciated now. And, I think of all those books like The Secret Garden and The Little Princess. That was kind of my speed as a girl. Interestingly, I've been staying with some of our grandchildren. And the little ones, some of them are avid readers, and I've just been spending time with a 7-year-old granddaughter who's a hesitant reader. And I think with her, she writes words backwards, she turns letters around. I'm trying to figure out what that is. The teachers aren't worried. So what I've been doing with her as I'm staying with her this week is like, well, how about if I read a big page and you read a little bit, and then we kind of keep it going that way. I don't want to push her too hard. So, I think of kids just wanting to read, but she has a little resistance. And I think it's because she's not seeing it in the way that maybe I did at that age. What about you reading as a kid?
Just, always reading. And it's funny you called it bored, but yeah, there was reading, playing outside. There's certainly nothing digital. It didn't exist at all. And even TV, we never watched TV after school or anything. My mother was an English teacher and a writer, so we were always, in fact, one of the characters in M's mother, who was very literary, and she introduces the kids to Shakespeare. And my mother was like that with Dickens,
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was. In fact, when we went to London, she had never been on a plane. My mother had never flown, and I was living in Paris, and she got sick, and I brought her over there for her treatment at the American hospital. And in between her treatments, we went to London, and she was so excited. It was unbelievable. So you go to London, where would the first place you go? Where would the first 5 places you go? First place we went was Dickens, the Dickens house. The second was the Boswell house. She just wanted to go to all these literary sites. And so I guess I just felt like I grew up in that, that was my world.
I think we had one more question over here, and then we'll move it to the back.
Does your best boy realize that he was the catalyst of your book?
I thank him at the back. The real best boy who wrote me the letter is a man by the name of Jeff Buchanan. And that weird email was his way of saying, oh, and you're a writer, and I'm now writing books too. I'm like, okay. So I do thank him in the back of the book. But it is funny. We do not know what kind of catalyst we are for other people. Well, thank you all. We'll see you back there. Thank you, Luanne.
Thank you, Deborah, for having me.
Love you.
Love you.
Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Please tune in each month as we'll bring you a new Ocean House author series highlighting nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation. Hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to be partnering with the Ocean House to bring you this ongoing series highlighting the best and brightest of the literary world. Thank you once again for joining us. And in the words of Margaret Atwood, in the end, we all become stories.